Hey guys, what's up? This is Ken Susi here at Fishman Live, and today we have an amazing guest. But before I announce him, as I said before, we're dealing with ways to avoid this current pandemic, and now we're seeing how it's affected the music industry, and obviously it's been affecting everyone's lives. Socially and business-wise, we're dealing with a health crisis as well as an economic crisis, and at the same time, just please remember to adhere to the regulations of your state. Right now, I'm going to introduce this artist. It is Chris Carrabba from Dashboard Confessional. And basically, just so you guys all know, you can ask him anything you want. Just please visit the Fishman Live on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. So, guys, let me introduce to you Mr. Chris Carrabba. How you doing, Chris?
I'm good, Ken. How are you?
I'm amazing. I am up in your area, well, where you're from. I believe you're from Connecticut, right?
I am originally
So
from Hartford. Yeah,
Hartford, yeah. So I live in Grafton, Massachusetts, but that's like kind of near Worcester in the
I
Palladium,
know.
right?
Well aware.
So what are you doing right now? I mean, obviously this whole virus that's kind of like swept the nation, or actually swept the globe, has been pretty serious. Everyone's staying home. What are you doing right now in order to keep your family and yourself safe from this?
We are isolating for sure. We are self-sheltering in a vigilant way and encouraging our friends and neighbors and family to do the same. It's hard. You feel a little preachy, but when you see your close relatives, maybe making some choices that they don't realize put other people in danger, it's kind of like, well, you got to say something. You can only say it once, really,
Yeah.
but you got to say something. So I've been in my house, I guess, since the tour was canceled, and it hasn't been terrible. It's different for me because I'm somebody that tours constantly, so this is a pleasant thing for me to be able to be home. Sure, I wish I could also go to a bar with my friends or to shows or play some damn shows.
Yeah.
Uh, but it is really, frankly, lovely to have this time, even though it's for such a horrific reason.
Yeah, were you out on the road when this whole thing hit?
Yeah, we were in the midst of a sold out tour, so it burned to leave it. But not just because it was sold out, but the spirit of the thing, the reason why it was sold out was there was just so much energy around it that I was soaking in and loving so much. It was quite honestly my favorite tour we've ever done.
Yeah.
And we'll finish it just like everybody else. It'll just be a little delayed. It was canceled, just before we got up your way in Boston.
Yeah.
Our
Is it
last,
super hard though? Like for instance, you get a lot of loyal bandmates and techs. I mean, you've been around since the early 2000s, if not 2000, on the cusp of yeah, that. So what's up with the guys like that work for you and stuff? I mean, they must be hitting hard times as well too, right? Because it's just the doors just shut at that point.
well, my crew are super industrious people, and they care about, of course, their livelihood, but others in their positions. And they collectively started this site went up today. It's Crew Nation. I don't know if it's crewnation.com, honestly, but Crew Nation is what it is. And the proceeds of these T-shirts go towards, much like Music Cares does, it goes to people that work for bands that are suddenly out of work. And there's no easy way to subsidize that. Um, I'm helping to the degree that I can, and Music Cares and things like that is available to crew members. But people don't understand how important crew guys and women are to to the music scene. I
Yeah.
mean, certainly I could do a show with no crew, but I really don't want to. It's kind of exhausting. They're two different jobs completely, being on stage and being the one that sets up the stage and runs everything, all the logistics. They work so hard. They work crazy. They work way harder than we do. And then
Exactly.
their work is just gone. So they started Crew Nation. I just encourage everybody to go check out their T-shirt designs. Proceeds go to people like them in that field, people that are suddenly out of work, like so many people.
That's awesome. Yeah, we had another artist. That's really cool. So crewNation.com. Guys, again, if you have any questions for Chris, we're here. Just check out the social platforms and you can ask directly. But yeah, Devin Townsend is an artist. He's a heavy metal guy. He had to stop a tour and he started a GoFundMe for his whole touring, ecosystem. Like between the tour and the guys that he works for, he's going to be just distributing the money that way. So that's kind of cool. Is there any other bands that you know of that had to kind of stop early? Have you been like talking to other artists?
It seemed like everybody went home at once.
Yeah.
But moreover, it's like, what's happening with the rest of the year?
Yeah.
Everybody I know that's going out. I was just texting with Rustin Kelly, who's got a tour going out. And so do I. I have to finish this tour. I had a Canadian run. I have a tour set up for a second American run before we even go to the international stuff. And none of us know. We just don't know yet when that'll be. It will be. It will happen again.
Yeah.
But we just don't know when.
Well, I was gonna say a lot of people are saying no shows until 2021. So that's kind of a ways away. But if they do turn it on too, I think since people are home and they don't have that much money to spend, especially when this whole thing's over. I mean, are bands going to go out? Are bands going to flood the market? Is everybody going to go on tour? I mean, that's a whole nother thing that you need to think about, right?
I guess that time will tell. All we can do is play it as it lays. All I know how to do, well, the only way I can make a living, like so many, I don't like the word artists, but forgive me for using it. So many acts, that's the way I make money. You don't really make money off of selling records or being on a record label or anything like that. You make money on the road. So I've got people to support, people that work for me, my family. Yeah. I'll be eager for sure to go out. And that's the great debate. Do we go out the minute we're told it's okay?
Yeah.
Or do we go out when we see that it really is okay?
Yeah.
And I don't know the right answer to that because there's people I do trust. Like if Anthony Fauci told me, hey, go on tour, I'm going.
True. Yeah.
And then will it be, you asked, Ken, if the market will be flooded. I think the market will be, if people are willing to go to shows, I think there'll be a lot of shows for them to go to.
Yep. Well, that's cool. Listen, I've been keeping an eye on your Instagram actually for a while now. So I've just noticed that you kind of turned the tide. And now you're starting to just like I actually dig it. You're doing like just little live shows. Well, not live, but you're just making posts on Instagram and Facebook, right? Of you just playing songs and stuff here and there. What is inspiring you to do that? Is it just like grab a guitar in the middle of the night when you can't sleep and just go for it?
Quite literally, sometimes. Yeah, sometimes I've just woken up and been the wheels won't stop spinning, and I don't know what else to do with myself, and I'll go into the basement and track something and post it the next day, or maybe I'll just post it right then and there. Other times it's a little more curated, like let's announce this and we'll have a live stream so we can all collectively have something to divert our attention from. I mean, we have to focus on our problems.
Yeah.
But we have to have some levity here. And to be honest with you, Ken, I need that. I really need that. And I find that music is, as you do, I'm sure, I know you do, is the thing that gives it to you.
Yeah.
So what are you supposed to do if you're somebody that like lives this life for since you were a teenager of like going on tour and connecting with people? I mean, even so much so that I'll be the first to say that I was really adverse to social media for until very recently. I would do as little as possible. My followers numbers probably show it for a band our size because I just felt like there wasn't any the connection was so insignificant, I thought.
Yep.
I was so wrong. This is if nothing else, this has really proven to me how beautiful it is that we can connect in this way. And I assume from what I'm told, when I read the comments that the fans need it and they feel that weight lifted off their chest or shoulders a little bit for a minute.
Yeah.
What I hope they know is just to sit down with purpose, not just grab a guitar and play, but to sit down with purpose. Like I'm going to sing this with everything that I can, with all the feeling that I can, which you don't do when you're just like noodling at home. Like I think that could be the alternative. Well, I could just play and sing at home and feel good about it, but it doesn't bring me the same.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things I was trying to bring up. It's like you could tell when an artist stages something and they go online because they want to keep their fans entertained. And of course, everyone has the best intentions. They just want to go out there and do something to stay visible. But I got such a vibe from you. I think I caught you doing one of those like late one night. I think you played something off your first record, and you genuinely looked like you wanted to perform for your fans. I mean, you probably didn't. I think you didn't even have a shirt on. You just I could totally tell you just rolled out of bed and just went for it.
I literally rolled out of bed.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do with myself, So I didn't even, like, when I did it, if I thought like, oh, I'm going to post this, I might have grabbed a shirt before I went down into a quiet area of my house. But by the time I got down there, I thought, you know what? I'm up in the middle of the night. I can't be the only one, whether I post this now or not. I think that I can show that, like, hey, there's reason to worry, but you're not alone in your worry. And sometimes that's comforting. Yeah. And also there's other people up in the middle of the night and like I was, and like find a way, like I did, find a way to funnel some purpose from that roiling energy that can be so destructive.
Yeah.
It's a crazy time, man. It's a crazy time.
I know none of us have ever dealt with it. And you kind of touched upon it too when I asked you how your family was. And, there's a generation before us, the boomers and stuff, that never really lived through anything like this. And they're the ones at the most risk, and they're the ones that are the toughest to keep home. So it's like, there's that. And we've never dealt with anything like this. I mean, so no one knows what to do. This is new ground for everybody. And that's why I was saying, like, your posts have been, in my opinion, probably some of the most genuine, just because I could tell you're really going, you want to perform for your fan base, and you just want to get that aggression out in some way.
I've got to, that feeling where you've got to, I've got to do it. I've got to, it's all happening here. Yeah. I'm worried all the time.
Yep.
And some of it is reasonable worry, and some of it is totally unreasonable worry.
Yeah.
I truly believe that I hope this is the hardest thing that our generation and the next generation that we ever go through, or the people that are living now. I hope this is the hardest thing that anybody ever has to go through.
I know for us, at our age, 9/11 was such a big change in the way we live, right? Like when that happened, everyone kind of like took a breath and said, wow, things are going to change from now on. And they did. Yeah. But this is like a whole different type of, I hate to call it a war, but this is like biological warfare that got released maybe by mistake, right?
Yeah. I don't know if I buy into all that stuff.
Yeah.
But that's probably because I don't want to borrow any trouble. There's enough to worry about with the facts that we can prove. So just knowing myself and how my wheels spin, I don't go down that path at all. But, I truly hope no one ever has to deal with anything this bad again.
Yeah.
But I don't think the world will be the same after.
Yep.
But that isn't to say that the world won't be incredible again.
Yeah.
I think we may see. You remember the stories you hear about the greatest generation, and how in World War II they bonded together. Every American and in many other nations, they banded together. They did their part, from making materials to fighting in wars. Yeah. And they changed. They made great personal sacrifices to change the world.
Yeah. No, that's true.
Risking their lives. We're being asked to stay at home.
Yeah.
I feel like we should be able to do this.
I agree. It's not that much of an ask, especially for those that don't want to go to work, or always the kids that want to miss school. It's like, now's your time to stay home.
I mean, of course, I sympathize. I'm one of them. I'm out of work right now.
Yeah.
And I know the perception, if you're in a band, you must be a bazillionaire or something like that. But, like we're showbiz middle class.
Yeah.
We tour because that's our livelihood. And if we're not touring, then we're not paying our bills. However,
Yeah.
this is the sacrifice that is asked of us at the moment. And so it's a blow, but it's the only course correction that seems to be predictably beneficial.
It's funny that you say that. We're not all millionaires, especially even if, someone goes to see you at a show and they see you play in front of a sold out audience. I mean, again, yeah, money, is not limitless. And we always make a joke on this live feed with other artists that like all artists don't drive to their shows in spaceships and they don't live in castles, and they don't, and not every artist drives a Ferrari, right? So,
Right.
so I like that you consider yourself a blue collar, musician, and that's what you are. I mean, I've met you in probably 2000, and you were hustling just like everybody else, and you still are. So I appreciate that about you.
Yeah, well, so I'll borrow the term that Jay Moore uses, which is showbiz middle class.
It's true, though. It's true. So a couple questions that have been popping by. Mind you, the feeds lighten up. Everyone's just like sending hearts and thank you so much for doing this. So you got a lot of people here that are happy to hear your words and happy to hear your perspective on things. One basic question was, have you skated? And are you really going to adopt a puppy?
Yes and yes. So I've been skating. I mean, what can you do? I mean, I don't have a neighborhood that's great for skating. There's not like, it's like a lot of aggregate sidewalks and driveways and stuff like that. But the street is beautifully paved, and I can do a lot of flatland tricks. I've waxed up the curb in front of my house. It doesn't grind that great, but maybe if I keep at it and keep waxing it, it'll be all right. And we rescued a puppy, on the 11th. So that's 3 days ago.
Yep.
So I think we committed within about a half hour to adopting this dog. We fell completely in love. Jasper. Oh, our dog Jasper.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Another question that rolled through from Cody, during this time, what bands have you been listening to, or have you been listening to anything? Because you have time to, right?
Absolutely. Well, the new Brian Fallon, amazing. I've been listening to Gang of Youths. I've been listening to Built to Spill. I'm always comforted by Built to Spill and inspired by Built to Spill. Single Mothers. I feel, God, Baroness, so much Baroness. Torch. And then conversely, way mellower, the Milk Carton Kids.
That's awesome. So you do listen to some heavy stuff, right? Torch?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Okay.
Torch is like my top 5 bands.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're one of my favorites. So yeah, let's go into some of the questions that I have for you. I'm still going to be answering your questions as we go, but so I play in a heavy metal band called Unearth. We were signed to Eulogy Records.
I love how you as if I don't know.
Okay, I didn't know. I don't assume, but listen. We're all big fans of you. We love your career. I think one of our first shows out of state, like actual traveling on our first tour, we played Eulogy Fest in 2000.
Yeah, the first one.
Yeah, and it was us.
Club Q, which is the worst club, the worst place ever.
Yeah.
But John had a way to make that place cool, even though we found out later they had I don't know, like white nationalists rallies at that place
Yeah.
too. It's just a strange thing. You got all those a very multicultural Miami, South Florida scene showing up, and then the next night, who knows, the most backwards thinking people in the whole world that we're not privy to.
Yes.
But I'm sorry.
No.
So
You're right.
Plays at Eulogy Fest in 2000.
I'm glad you painted the picture, though, because there's no way to really describe it other than the way you just described it. So, yeah, no, it was amazing because it was us, heavy metal band. There was a band called Red Roses for a Blue Lady. I think they played before you. And then you headlined. And I mean, that was such a unique time. And I really do think that you're one of the first artists that really broke dudes like me, like playing, heavy metal into the stuff that you were doing. I mean, I was a fan of Further Seems Forever prior to you starting Dashboard Confessional, but it's so funny because I didn't really get you as an artist per se. Like I liked Further Seems Forever, but when what was it, Swiss Army Romance came out, and I actually got to hear you do your thing by yourself. It made so much more sense, and that's so crazy because I was a fan of your voice before, but why did the two projects sound? You know what I mean? Like why did one sound right?
Yeah.
Right?
You know, I often get asked about that, you know, that relationship with like my shows, like playing that festival. Well, let's just stop and talk about that festival first, because that was such a good memory for me. John Wiley from Eulogy Records put that on, Eulogy Fest. And John had liked all of my bands well enough to like put us on shows, because remember he promoted all kinds of shows too. But he wasn't all that really that interested.
Yep.
I know this because he told me.
Yeah.
You know, we were friendly enough that he'd be like, yeah, it's not for me. It's good. I recognize it's good. Like with Further, he's like, I get it. It's cool. But it's not my thing.
But it's okay because he's like this heavy, like hardcore guy who played in like Morning Again and all these like heavy bands until the end. So it's like he's not supposed to like that, right? Anyway.
Right. Well, yeah, but it's also like it's a totally valid opinion, especially like you're lucky, honestly, if you have friends that you can be told that by and it doesn't sting.
Totally.
You know, my music isn't for everybody. It's not even for all of my friends. You know?
Yeah.
But anyway, when I did Dashboard, he was like he turned on a dime.
Yep.
He was like, this is the thing. He was one of the first. He's like, I get this, whatever it was. And I think he summarized it pretty well. He's like, this is the most hardcore thing you've done yet. And I didn't really understand the hard lines of division between scenes, because that didn't really exist in South Florida. There were so few bands that we had to play. Everybody had to play together. You had hardcore bands playing with metalcore bands, playing with pop punk bands and ska bands, and that was like all in the same bill. So those are the only shows I ever played. It never ever occurred to me that like now that I have acoustic guitar, I'll go play a coffee house. I didn't even know bands or people played at coffee houses. I didn't go to coffee houses.
Yep.
I went to Dunkin' Donuts to get a cup of coffee. I don't know. So I just played where my roots were, and I'm a hardcore kid. And I grew up listening to really diverse music, but the thing but punk rock, hardcore, and metal like sunk its teeth into me early enough that it's still my favorite music. And the community I identify most with, though I don't know that I'm identified with that community.
Yeah.
But except for people in the know like you, that know the history and all that stuff. Yeah. So I came up in the ranks of hardcore shows, playing with just my acoustic guitar, and it was, it didn't seem like a radical thing. It didn't seem like this like put my big punk rock stamp on things. Like look at how fucking punk I am. I'm doing this thing in the face of all this. It was just like this is. Oh yeah, they want me to play a show, or I want to play this show. That's of course where I go. That's where people go to see shows. So it wasn't until I got out of Florida and started touring up the East Coast. I toured obviously with Further and the Vacant Andes a lot before that, but once I started doing it as Dashboard, and remember back then it was just me for about 3 years. It was just me alone. That's when I saw that there was like huge dividing lines between. I was on these hardcore shows, and it was like, yo, you shouldn't be here.
Yeah, but you were like the one exception. That was the thing.
Well, because I would win them over, because I wasn't intimidated, because they were like me. Like I knew that at their core we were the same. So I had this feeling of like they're going to start out not liking me, and that's okay. And they may end up not liking me, and that's okay. But I guarantee you, once I stand up there with the same conviction that they have in their hearts, that they'll give me a chance, if nothing else. And they're predisposed to not give me a chance until I got up there, and then I could see it change. I could see the arms uncross. and it happened, and even the very first like big tour that I did was a bill that was the first big tour I did was Face to Face, H2O and Snapface, and me playing acoustic guitar.
That's
and
awesome.
to this day, like Trevor from Face to Face, one of my best friends, and Toby, like I can't believe our friendship is now nearly 20 years long. I mean, I remember seeing him. I remember getting dropped off to see H2O play before I had my license.
Same here. It's just so funny because that show. It's fun. Like being from Massachusetts, I didn't really hear about you until we actually made that trip down there. And I bought a shirt. I bought a CD. Cruised it. Listened to it all the way back home. Was really into what you did, but it wasn't. I didn't. It takes a lot for me to like go and buy a shirt, especially when I had no money back then, to buy a shirt, buy a CD, and support an artist. But the thing that I realized is that I felt like you were the guy. You were the guy that everyone could just say, okay, all of us metal guys, all these hardcore guys, people who fight at shows and whatever, this is the guy we can all kind of like stand behind because he could just like, let's let this guy do this because he's the best at it. And it was and before that, before I saw you play, and before I started, following your career after that, it was really tough for a guy like you to do something like that, especially play in front of hardcore kids. They would they would walk out of the room if they didn't like it. So it's amazing that you got that opportunity, and it's amazing that you won that audience over. And that was definitely, for me, I think, the changing of the times. Now it's okay for a punk rock band to play with a metal band or a death metal band. I think you were one of the first guys that make that okay in the modern day for heavy metal and hardcore and pop rock and all that. Would you say that that's somewhat accurate, or do you think there's other bands that were as soft as you that crossed over like that?
It's a hard one to answer because there were softer bands, but I don't know if I'll pull one out of the hat. I'm not sure if Pedro the Lion was playing with hardcore bands. I just don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Because there was that band Botch too. I don't know if you remember any of those Hydra Head bands,
Sure.
but they had a band after that. I can't remember what it was, but it was soft. Can't remember.
Oh, certainly. Jonah from Far with One Line Drawing.
So good.
Was a pioneer in going out there and playing a totally different style of music to. But I don't know if he. I just don't know. I don't know if he kept on playing shows with Deftones that way.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
No.
you indirectly got me into Far, even though I think Far was probably before you, right?
Okay.
So having heard Dashboard Confessional, then I was like backtracking. I was like, oh, this band Far is sick.
So sick, right? So sick.
So that was amazing to me. So you definitely turned me on to a lot of stuff. I'll never forget that festival because I don't know if you ever knew this, but our band got robbed after that show.
I remember.
Yeah, like I don't know if you remember the details, but it was on our DVD. Like we parked behind the van. A lot of us usually, like one guy used to stay in there, but someone just everyone was watching you, and we were just kind of hanging out. First tour ever, and a guy from that apartment complex broke into our van and he smashed all the windows, took all of our gear. It was just one guy, and he bled all over our van. And we were kind of like, oh, that's crazy. But so we were all real cautious about getting back into the van. The police came back, and then the police actually found out who it was. And there was this gentleman who actually had HIV.
Oh,
and
man.
The cop at the time, he's like, don't go in the van. We have a situation here. And they walked us through his house after that to retrieve most of our gear and our stuff. And it was all bled on. It was a really spooky experience for us. We didn't know what to do,
That is the most South Florida kind of story. It was a tough scene, man. It was a tough place to grow up. It was a tough place to cut your teeth.
Yeah. Well, fast forwarding a little bit of time. So then, I saw you in 2000. I think I went to the Palladium in 2001, 2002 to see you play. Sold out show. I mean, I've never seen the Palladium that packed. There was people all the way, packed into the floor, all the way up into the rafters. And I made a joke to my friend that when we're watching you play, because you were killing it. Everyone was singing every single word, and I was saying to myself, wow, like this guy, like literally, they must have handed out the Swiss Army Romance songbook to every elementary school or middle school in the country, because like it just felt like everyone was singing like a song they've known for their whole lives, right? So you blew up, and you blew up super fast. So what was that? What was
Yeah,
that like?
it was this weird thing to like 2 years of toil, of nobody caring, and then a little thing called Napster came along,
Mm-hmm.
and it like flipped a switch, and people, it grew slowly, but compared to the first 2 years, it's like a rocket.
It's a rocket to the moon, and it goes fast, because I mean it was so good to see you and not Jump Old Children. What was the name of that band? They sang that song 2 Minutes to Downtown and Red Letter Day.
The Get Up Kids, who we
You're
were
on MTV.
coincidentally, this tour that I just had to stop was Piebald and Get Up Kids.
Yes. So Piebald was a band from our area that was like the gateway band to heavy metal, and that kind of thing. They played the Red Barn and all that. But yeah, those bands were starting to be featured on MTV. So you played MTV, right? Acoustic.
Yeah, I did.
So that must have been a trip. So yeah, what was that kind of like, playing small clubs to hardcore kids and then making that jump like?
It was like too surreal to like. It was so surreal that I put a hard wall up. I like believed this can't last, or made myself believe this can't last. This has got to be a fluke. Because I grew up a hardcore kid, there's a lot of ethos about your own moral compass and all this stuff, and I just didn't want to be corrupted by this thing called fame.
Yeah.
And MTV was making me famous.
Yeah.
MTV made me famous. So I had this awkward relationship with not MTV, but with the popularity. Mm-hmm. I had a no new friends rule.
Yep.
I was sticking to my original friends, which is probably an overreaction. But I was just very nervous about this thing that I was, forgive me for the flowery language, but the thing that is and was so precious to me, being corrupted somehow because I allowed it to spread too far and wide. Mm-hmm. But I was cognizant of the fact that like I want a music career, and I've earned it. I'm earning it right now. Yeah. I'm giving this opportunity, and I'm going to work as hard as possible. And so there was this dichotomous thing going on inside me, like work. Don't embrace it. Just keep it at arm's length, but chase it. So it was a constant kind of like battle of instinct. What's the right thing?
Yeah. Well, I remember even before Swiss Army Romance really took off. I mean, it took off pretty quickly, but before it took off, I remember guys around the country were kind of already trying to position themselves to be in your band, even before you decided to have a band. So that must have been super. The selection. I know that there was one guy, right? Was his name Scott, right? That's been in the band the whole time?
Yes. Well, nobody's been in the band the whole time. But Scott's been in the band the longest. Okay. So my original bass player is my best friend, Dan Bonebreak, who I was in the Vacant Andes with. And so you'll know him as the redhead in MTV, the red-haired bass player in the MTV Unplugged, if you've seen that. That was his last show. I didn't want him to quit. He would come later to not have wanted to quit either. But it doesn't matter. We're still absolutely best friends. And he was there with me watching you guys play at Eulogy Fest all those years ago. And he's still who I FaceTime with every day. But Scott joined the band when Dan left. And so Scott's been in the band for 18 years.
Yeah. So was everybody,
Or 17 years. Is it?
Yeah.
I
So
can't.
so the rest of the band though, was that a tough
18.
selection at first because it was your own thing and then you decided to build a band around it? Was that
It was tricky.
yeah.
Um, there were a couple of people that were like, I was lucky in that there was like, the original concept was, and this is why I didn't call it my own name. For two reasons, I didn't call it my own name. If it was my own name, it could only be mine.
Mm-hmm.
It could never be ours.
Yep.
I didn't like that, so I gave it a band name. And then I always thought, in South Florida, there's not as many musicians as are needed for the band number of bands.
Yeah.
So we all helped each other. Like I played in Newfound Glory, or somebody in Charlotte played in Further. These kinds of things would happen all the time.
Yeah.
And so I figured like this would be a great, when it was still a side project, it was like this would be a great thing for me to do when different friends, say Chad from Newfound Glory,
Yep.
was home from tour, and I had a few shows, he could play guitar with me. That was my original concept. And in the first few iterations of the band, it was like it was a revolving door of people. And I loved it. But then we settled on the original trio, and then we had, which was our friend, me and Dan and our buddy Mike. And then Dan would leave, and then Mike would leave, and then I had a couple people I knew were temporary, and that was okay.
Yep.
Like, hey, I'm only here I only have 6 months, but I'd love to play with you. Awesome, let's do it. What a great experience. I learned so much from so many different players. Yeah. I even had and I got to play with people that I looked up to and like were heroes of mine. I like Scott was in the Promise Ring, which is one of my favorite bands ever. Dan Horner from Sunny Day Real Estate joined Dashboard for a while. A huge band for me, and Dan was a huge personal hero of mine and is. But eventually I needed a band that was going to be a cohesive constant. And it's never really been that 100%, because I always find people that are incredible songwriters, and then I try really hard to make their project go, and then they have success. And like, my desire is for them to be at Dashboard forever, but it's so selfish because some of them are such good players, and their own music is so good that I love for them to use Dashboard as a platform to turn it into their own.
That's
career.
really great of you, because some guys like in your position might want to hoard their songs and build the band, and in your case you're just kind of like, hey, you're great, go build your career. So that's cool. I mean, have you ever encountered that musician that, I mean, maybe this might have happened in the early days, but like, what about the guy who joins your band who decides that wants to change your band more so to be more visible for the band? Like, because some people have a hard time joining a band and then saying like, which is clearly was yours up front because it was just yourself, but then being like, all right, let's make the band more of a band. Let's make this more about me, trying to take away from the singer. Like, have you ever had that kind of guy?
No, I've been that guy. Let's make it more of a band.
Okay.
And then it comes into the thing where like the record label or the managers or whoever, like you remember you spent all those years alone. And that's how you're identified in a lot of ways. So we have to kind of like balance those two things.
Yep.
But to be quite honest, no, I think everybody that's joined my band liked the band when there was no band, like Dashboard when it was just me. So they kind of at least get that. Like, for example, I knew early on when we've had those first band shows, I knew I had something special with these bandmates because they were like, during the first few times, I think we just ran, like every song was a band song. And I remember being pulled aside by Dan and him being like, why are you not playing by yourself at all?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, we're a band now. He's like, not to them.
Yeah.
Meaning the audience. He's like, to them, like a big important part of this is like you and the audience. That needs to be a portion of this show. So I've been really fortunate to play with some selfless players and great friends. And I feel the same way about my crew, guys.
Yeah.
It's a family. Not everybody has it as good as I've got it.
Yep.
And I wouldn't trade it for anything.
So, not to be nostalgic, but you're at 20 years at this point, right, on Swiss Army Romance. So, is there? I don't know if you happen to. I don't know. I don't follow you too closely. Do you go out and do your own solo shows, just as Dashboard Confessional, just like the OG way, or are you actually gonna do like maybe a Swiss
Yes.
Army Romance tour where you just go out by yourself?
So I just did, the last tour of the last tour of last year was me in Europe, just by myself.
Nice.
The tour that is postponed next was me in Canada by myself, and the tour that I was planning to do in America next was me by myself. So yes, I do continue to do.
That's
both.
awesome. That's awesome. So let me ask you this: so going from Swiss Army to what was it? The places you've come to fear the most. There's a lot of expectation at that point, right? Like you have this record. I mean, first of all, you put out a record. You had your whole life to write it, right? Swiss Army Romance, and that did really well. But what was it like going from like that to the next record in just a year's time, and kind of not letting your fans down, right? I think that's where you introduced the band, and what was it like writing that record? Did you feel a lot of pressure?
No, I don't think I did, man. I think it was still like that. When I wrote it and recorded it, was really before the kinetic energy started happening. So I was doing, the band was doing well, but not like what you saw at the Palladium in Worcester. So no, I still had that feeling like of anonymity as a writer.
Yeah.
And there wasn't the weight of expectation other than my own. The only thing I wondered about how to do was how to introduce the band onto the record. And the way I went about it was using 2 songs from the previous album to showcase that this provides a new feeling without taking away the old feeling.
Yep.
And then there was only 2 more. So there's only a total of 4 songs with the band on the record.
Yep.
So I was careful. I was careful to not throw away the thing that I loved. And I think that I would have probably, when Swiss came out, I was still in Further. And when I was writing the places, I was still in Further. So I had an outlet for more guitar-driven music, for more band-driven music. I had that outlet.
Yep.
But then I'd left Further for reasons that had nothing to do with Dashboard. And I didn't think Dashboard was going to be the band I would be in. I thought it was just like it was when I made it, when I was in Further, it was just this side project. I thought it would always be a side project. So then by the time Mark Mission came around, I didn't have another band.
Yep. That's interesting, because some people would say, oh, it's easy to leave Further because your career is skyrocketing with Dashboard, but to find out that it wasn't really related, and you still didn't even see it as that like main project. That's pretty cool. I think we might have lost the feed for a second. Hold on one sec.
I still had.
I'm sorry, we just lost you for a second. What was that?
Oh, I said I never wanted to force myself back to who I was as a writer, or the way I approach writing, I should say, of the Places era. But recently I was there. I just happened, and I wrote a batch of songs that are they're vibrant, but they're way the hell stripped down.
Yeah. Well, being a fan, I could say that when you went from Swiss to Places and you introduced the band, I actually like the fact that you did incorporate some of the songs off the first record, just just to kind of acclimate my head towards what those songs would sound like with drums. Because people did always wonder that kind of stuff. Like, oh, what would that sound like with drums? What if he did build a band behind that? And you gave
Yeah,
everyone that window, and obviously made everyone hungry enough to have a 20-year long career at this point. So
something went right.
something happened to gone right. But so let's tie this back into Fishman. We get a lot of questions about gear here. You've been a long time Fishman user. Your guitar tone is fantastic as far as I'm concerned. For an acoustic artist, it's one of my favorite guitar tones. What is it that you're doing? What is it that you're using of ours?
Well, I use the Fishman Matrix pickups in my acoustic guitars. And then I use I really love the Aura DI. I mean, it is been my secret weapon since it came out, really. Because I know that this is part of what I do for a profession. I play acoustic guitar through a PA, but there is no worse sound than an acoustic guitar through a PA.
True. It can be
Unless
bad.
you have a Fishman Aura. And then it's like, because for those that, there's probably everybody knows who's watching this, but for those that don't know, is that you can blend in what microphone you choose. It's like uses an algorithm to give you the tonality of wood and a microphone, as opposed to just like a plug.
Yeah.
To me, it's like there's times I've recorded in the studio and not used the mic because the Aura was so revealing. It gave so much of the guitar's tone that it beat the mic.
Yeah, it's such a good tool to have because yeah, you're right. You could use it in the studio. I believe you could just go direct out of it. And that's the best part about it live is that you don't have to fiddle with anything crazy. You just literally plug your guitar into the Aura and it goes right to the front house exactly the way you want to hear it.
Yeah.
So
I've never had a show where like the people that work at the club, the house sound guys haven't come up to me and been like, or my front of house guy, what's going on with that acoustic guitar?
Yeah.
How's that? Why does it sound like a guitar?
It's funny because most acoustic musicians know that you can easily plug a guitar in, and the side fill guy would be like, what is he using? Like, like that happens more so with acoustic guitars than like hard rock or heavy metal, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So that's cool. Well, hey, I really appreciate you kind of like giving us some time. Obviously coming on the live feed, there's been a lot of great questions. Everyone's been basically saying how excited they are to just, hear your voice and how this was just like kind of a conversation. People are asking if you're writing currently and if there's a new Dashboard Confessional coming out soon.
I mean, I am writing, and yes, but I mean, I can't define soon, and nobody can anymore.
No worries. Well, obviously, all your fans are going to be asking about new material. It's never going to end. But Chris, well, listen, we've kind of taken up most of your time, so thank you so much for having us interview you.
Thanks.
This has been amazing, and hopefully, I'll get to catch up with you in Boston at some point. It's good to know that you're like the same person that I met back in 2000.
Likewise, man. Congratulations on all your success. And I'm glad we got a chance to talk today, Ken.
I know. Thank you. So, all right. Well, guys, this is Chris Carrabba. Thank you very much for watching Fishman Live. We're going to have more artists on. And yeah, if you have anything else to write, just write it to Chris directly. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Bye, Chris.